Okay.
Okay, we want to call this meeting to order.
Mm-hmm.
It is right now 7:14, December 20th, 2022, and this is going to be an open public hearing with the
No.
Budget Committee.
Not a did we advertise it as a public hearing?
No, I
It's
guess
just a-
it's an open to the public
Yes.
Budget Committee hearing.
And then on the 28th, there will be a actual public hearing for the final adoption of the 2023 budget.
Correct.
After this meeting, we will file per the reference to filing a preliminary budget. This will be filed at the end of this meeting. Okay. So Jess and I met to discuss the rest of the items that we didn't get to, and we ended last time at page 11. We got through the rest of the document. So my suggestion would be thus. I think we should start from the top of the document again
Okay.
and run just all the way through from end to end. And hopefully, because we've at least, so as a group, we've had the debate through page 11. Jess and I have had the debates through the rest of the document. Hopefully there shouldn't need to be a lot of discussion.
11 through 31, I believe.
And then as we go through the document, Jerry can listen and double check that the new 2023 budget is reflecting these changes. At the end of the document, if we all look at each other and say we're good, Jerry's checking that the new budget meets, you guys are checking the amounts that make sure that they make sense, and that we're abiding by what we talked about last time as we got from pages 1 to 11. Then at the end of that, if we all look at each other and nod, we can consider that good. Jerry can send that out to info@harrington.city. People on YouTube are hearing this. That will be our filed preliminary budget, and that will be locked to, assuming there are no other changes necessary, that'll be locked getting from here to the 28th when we do the final adoption. So.
Can you tell me, Jerry, what day you sent out the new revised budget that you changed from the notes?
I think it was 16th.
Thank you.
At 1:52.
So I'm going to have that, 11/16.
I've got it here. Do you want it printed? I know you're.
2023 budget, got it.
Do you want to look at it online, or do you want? I know
I'm
you're
going
doing
to
on
have that
paper.
online, and I'm going to work off the original copy I had here.
Okay.
So I'll be able to see the updates that we made, or that have been changed.
And I'm also going through with the assumption that last time, when I asked if anyone had any other line items to question other than the ones that I had recorded, no, everyone shook their heads no. So I'm going to go through just my highlights with the assumption that no one has yet found anything new to discuss. So
Maybe I don't have this sheet. That's on the 15th, this is 2022.
I'm going to start on page 1.
You sent that on the 16th, Jerry? That should be a 23 budget, am I correct?
It's 2023 proposed budget is the
On 11/16.
At
What? No, this is-
1:52 p.m. 13:52.
Show me time here, senior meals, 2023 budget, got it. No, this is projections. I don't see this file attached to it.
In the interest of time, do you want me to send it to you right now?
Yes, that'd be wonderful. 11/16.
Should be on its way.
Okay.
Actually, I just caught something, potentially two things. In 330, 332, 92, 10,000, the coronavirus revenue should be struck, right? We're not expecting any more incoming coronavirus money, right?
I don't know, I don't know that I would say that's true. They're still talking about there's a lot of it that they haven't put out yet.
But it is still sitting in the bank account.
Sure, but we wouldn't be projecting it as revenue. I don't think.
Yeah, this is, isn't a budget that basically supposed to be money in for the year, money out for the year?
Mhm.
Yeah. So it's already in,
I mean,
didn't we get a second 58,000
Yes,
I think
in
that-
2023 or in 2022?
I think that's what
Correct.
is being represented.
Okay, we got one in 2021.
Yes.
This is
And we got
2022.
another one
You're
in like
right.
the second or third
Yeah.
month of 22, excuse me.
So yeah, 2023, that needs to be zeroed out.
Yep. And then did we discuss the LE and CJ leg one-time cost? I'm not sure what LE and CJ are, but one-time cost is a phraseology that makes me,
That's law enforcement and criminal justice, something.
okay.
And wasn't that to make up for a shortage from the year before or something to that effect? I think we did not pay them the amount that we said we were going to or we agreed to, and we paid them the amount from the year before. Just throwing that out there, I don't know that that's the...
Well, it's on the revenue side, so it would be money that we would expect coming in, not going out.
I don't know.
Well, if we do start doing quarterly reviews, that's all the more reason that if we can't answer the question, we might as well strike it, because one-time costs, and the fact that at least as of the middle of November, we still didn't receive that money. 0 of 1,659, so I'll leave it to Jess's discretion since it's his budget, but I think I'd be inclined to strike it. Okay, so anyways, back on the highlights. The liquor excise tax and liquor control board profits. I was, in our last meeting, I was just kind of going through bit by bit and I wasn't taking notes for each one. What did we record for those adjustments?
3,500.
And did we leave the excise tax alone or no?
Both of them.
Both of them 35?
Yeah.
That's correct, that's what I see here.
Okay. Yeah, that probably works. Sale surplus fire truck from 5 down to, wasn't it 2?
2,000.
Yep.
Inovia grant vacant lot project struck. This is, yeah, struck because this is revenue, not outgoing. No more expected revenue on the vacant lot. Next page, salaries and personnel benefits up 5%.
That's what the note said, yeah.
Election expense, we left at the end of the discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Insurance, Joe provided the number of adjustment there.
It was supposed to be dropped, pretty much any insurance line by 25%.
So 367, the Inovia grant has been struck. Inovia grant is still there. We had talked about striking that. That's line at 3670003.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
And I still see it in there.
And just as a clarification, I believe we didn't strike all expenses for the vacant lot project because we projected there's more of those to come, but revenue, we're not expecting that Inovia is going to be giving us any more money, and as far as I'm aware, there are no fundraisers planned right now, so therefore, at the time of budget, we do not budget with the expectation that the city will be in receipt of any additional single dollar even for that project.
And I see 68 on there. Is that what everybody else sees?
68, 625?
Yes.
Yeah. We're just striking that line because it shouldn't be
The whole line.
the whole line.
Yep. Okay. So that didn't come off with my list here. So that line needs to go away.
Telephone, landline, and cell phones down to $100. Again, as a reminder that I know it's going to be more than that, at least in the first quarter as I finish making the phone adjustments, but I'd rather do it in a budget amendment once we know what those, I mean, $100 is the correct projection
For the year?
for the year, but in the first quarter, while we're still transitioning off of CenturyLink, we're going to blow, I mean, a single month of Century bill is more than $100. So our first quarterly adjustment will adjust it up for the quarter, but at that point, we will hopefully have received our final CenturyLink bill, and so we can do the budget adjustment to make it exactly match,
Sure.
and then we should be able to project through the rest of the year cleanly. Software and hardware, that question was answered. Historical preservation grant expenses, I believe we said we were going to strike that. And that they were going to need to come request it again from us if they wanted it back. Which again, since we are on tape tonight, I just will say I am more than open to talk about giving that money back, but at this point, I think there's enough of a disconnect from the council's perspective on what the Historical Preservation Society is doing with the money that I think we would like the opportunity to talk about where that money goes before we just budget it, especially since in this last year, $0 of 1,000 were spent. So it does not appear as though we are negatively impacting anyone's intentions at this point. Anovia vacant lot project grant pass-through. That was, I think, what we talked about was to say that it would be the lower of two numbers. What they have remaining in the bank under their account, or the deficit between what they were projected to spend this year and what they actually spent. So their projected expenditure was $68,625. As of mid-November, they spent $43,155.60. So that's roughly 25 grand. So if they have less in their account than that, then they would get the number that's actually in their account projected for next year's spending. If they happen to have more than that, we would limit them at this point to the remainder
What's left?
of what's left there. So I don't know if we did those calculations yet. We would need to before we actually put that number on the next year's budget, but that was the discussion for that.
573, we want to strike that line too.
You're talking about the historical preservation?
Yes.
Yeah, 573, 1010, 000.
Right. I'm double checking right now to see what did and did not get updated here, so to speak, with our first attempt. So everybody has a good handle on the last explanation for the Anovia vacant lot project, on how that funding will be decided?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Jerry, you good with that? Cool. Capital outlay park facilities, I don't think we were going to change that. It was just a mention that we should actually try to spend it next year. Moving on, page 5. This is intergovernmental revenue on street construction, striking the TIB SCPP grant funds and striking the TIB West Adams Street funds. I'm guessing, even though it's listed at $0, I'm wondering if we could even just strike the line item for TIB funds, relight Washington. Because if it's just gonna be 0, I don't know, maybe that's a perennial thing for TIB that we just leave, but still, that 77, or almost 78,000, and that 259,000, those are both things that can go away. They won't show up next year.
Now, to input something, is this the spot where our emergency water,
No, non-street construction.
was that? I thought we were, oh, I see it's under, yeah, okay, sorry, apologize. Yep.
No, that's good. And then just the other half of that Adams Street project, if you look down further on, under 534, water utilities is the pass-through of that 258,800. So that line can get struck as well. And this is a $0 line item, but the line item actually 590, right at the bottom of the page, 595.30.00.002
Yep.
is another one to do with Adams Street. That line item can get struck. That doesn't carry any dollars with it, but
Just removed to clean it up.
yeah, just to clean it up. I mean, there's enough line items on this stinking thing as it is.
What about the two line items above?
The TIB SCCP
They're also
grant.
on 0.
Construction on other grants seems general enough. I don't know if I would touch it without knowing, but the 595.80.00.000 seems to be related to that TIB SCCP grant funds line item that has the 77,900 that we're looking to strike above it. So it's probably proper to get rid of that line item as well.
Okay.
Which is the 595.80.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Page 7, TIB Street Seal Grant, that's another strike. And then the other side of that, and that's still ending up related to that SSCP, that's that same magic amount of 77,900 that we talked about above. And then we see that same pass-through on the other side of it, down below 542.30.48, roads and street ordinary maintenance TIB street resurface, and again 77,900. So that can get struck as well. Further down to page 10. Marijuana excise tax 3360642,000. Forget where we took that one to. 470 up to,
Which page are you on still?
this is now page 10. Under
Okay.
330 intergovernmental revenue.
Before we get there, on page 8, you had something highlighted in yellow.
Yeah, and it was more a question of how we bill against it than anything we probably need to do with the
Okay.
budget.
Okay, fair enough.
There's also questions that we'll have to take this up. We'll say it just at a later time, but there are some questions about why some of these line items don't have anything billed against them. That's just, I think, that we're not putting certain expenses against the line items, but I think the budgeted amount is still correct.
Got it. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Back to page
Marijuana
10.
excise tax,
Page 10.
page 10. So we were talking about bumping that up to 550.
Yeah, okay, that sounds right. It might still even be low, but one can hope.
336.
I guess I could open a pot shop in town.
336.
think you should open a Cheetos and Doritos shop.
Well, I'm sure the Chamber of Commerce would love to have your
The revenue.
smiling countenance, yes. And then page 11, and we're into cemetery stuff. So Jess and I talked a little bit more about cemetery sales and cemetery services under 340 water revenues. The weirdness being that cemetery sales had a budgeted 4,800, took in 350 as of mid-November, whereas cemetery services, open and close, had $0 budgeted and took in 3350, which is a bizarre little thing. So I believe Justin, what we talked about, I think, was just totaling up whatever's at the end of the year now and just projecting that forward. Because at the end of the day, you're never going to be able to project how many plots you're going to really be able to sell for sure, and you're certainly not going to be able to project how many plots you're going to open and close in a year. So it's worthy of having something on the budget, but I don't really see any point of getting fancier than just taking whatever happened in one year and putting it forward to the next. And if we're doing quarterly budget amendments, we'll just track it closer.
Why is that revenue under quote water revenues?
Well, there's something else going on with 340 water revenues listing and bias, because there's things like, if we go further down in the document, we'll find the fiber project stuff showing up under water revenues. There's some association and bias where just about anything can come under the heading water revenues.
Is it, maybe it's a bias setup where 340 is revenues?
Yeah.
And somebody put the tag water revenues?
Maybe.
And that stuck through the whole system?
Yeah.
Could be.
Okay. So this is a setup issue.
I think so.
It's a settings? Okay.
I'm going to operate under the assumption that it's not a relevant terminology.
Okay. Just,
And the last part of that thing about the cemetery is we're pretty sure we're going to go into the red this year with our
Mhm.
cemetery budget because of the expenses that are hanging over our head for trees, tree removal.
well, we're going to need to
Probably
do,
rise above repairs of the water system, sprinkler systems this year.
well, isn't the purpose of a budget so that we can kind of anticipate? Yeah, we don't necessarily want to spend all of it all at once, but like we talked about, highlight the most critical things that need to get done and get them done
Well,
because we're budgeted for it.
if we're looking at the trees, for example, say 30,000 for the trees, then we could split that between cemetery and cemetery improvement and add some to each to cover that.
You could.
You know, like increase the maintenance and supplies.
I have a question that I'm going to need to work through with Justin or Nathan or people who have done the budgets historically, but the more I looked at this with Jess the other day, the less I understand why we have 3 cemetery funds. I know why we have 2. I don't understand why we have 3. Because you have a cemetery general fund, you have a cemetery improvement fund, you have a cemetery endowment fund. I understand the endowment fund, that's all kept separate, you can't intermingle that. But what is the general fund if not essentially the improvement fund? It's just, to me, there's non-accessible money and there's accessible money.
Especially as far as that facility is concerned.
Yeah.
Yes.
So to me, I mean, you could split it between the 2. I don't care. I'm happy enough to see that. Or you can just put it all in one and just do a money transfer from general.
When I started coming to council meetings, there was a big conversation, and this is maybe part of the general fund, but there was a conversation about replacing the shed, the building that was up there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, we're going
So-
to hit these 2 when we get down to cemetery services and
Okay.
capital outlay.
Okay, so are we changing anything on this?
So the water revenue items, the 343,600,000 and the one below it, the 001, sales and services, just project it forward from this year to the next is my 2 cents. Investment interest, Jess, did you get a chance to talk to Sage?
I did not.
Okay. What I'm assuming is happening there is there might have, I'm not sure on timings exactly, but I know that some money was moving around into the LGIP stuff, and so there's probably, because the CDs we had some CDs, they were paying well, but they were all going away, and then they went into LGIP. So I'm assuming that the essence of that 8,000 is there, but it probably got moved into endowment and other areas stuff. So I recommended that Sage should be able to just tell us what interest we should expect for next year, which is still a really rough estimate anyways, right? Because LGIP interest changes, is it daily or weekly or something like that, and the Fed keeps jacking the rates every few months. So whatever we put in there is going to be wrong, but have her just kind of pull a number out of the air and dump it on there, and it should be fine.
But in the interest of clarity, we got to have it categorized correctly, because with all the changes we did, showing $4.46 in investment income,
Right.
it just needs to appear differently.
Well,
So wherever it's tucked away, this year it needs to show clearly that LGIP is doing its job.
Right. And to be clear, the 446 would be coming off of non-endowment money. The endowment money is huge and should be producing relatively large interest. The non-endowment money is relatively small and should be producing relatively minuscule interest. So to me, the 446 is not as puzzling as the 8,000. I'm not exactly sure how we ever thought 8,000 was going to be possible. 8,000 is the kind of number you might want to see from the endowment side of things.
I thought there was an expectation, I haven't done the math, but I thought there was an expectation that realistically there should be a very low 5-digit number as investment income on that across the board, once it got correctly moved into the correct account.
If that's coming from, if that interest is endowment interest that's
Yeah.
getting transferred over. I guess the point that I'm unclear on is whether that investment interest is talking about interest that we're getting on non-endowment money that's being held in the account, or whether that is LGIP money that's coming from the endowment and then getting put into the general fund.
And how often does that money get taken out of the LGIP and deposited into the maintenance fund?
Well, nothing actually comes out of the LGIP, but the dividend of it, if you will, the interest of it goes directly into the other. What time frame that happens?
Is that a quarter? Every quarter that happens, or?
Well, and here's the fear. If the money's in a CD, and then the CD matures, let's say it's $1,000 CD, and 6 months later it matures and it's $1,001. If they're rolling over $1,001, then that's $1 that is not investment income being pulled out of that process. It's now being rolled over into the next one. So that's a little bit of concerning, is do we have a large CD that's rolling over? We're not losing money, but it's not being pulled out of the...
I thought all our CDs were done.
I think they are
Okay.
pretty much. There might be a very small amount remaining, but
I thought they were done before they were sent to the state.
most of them were. I don't know if they all got called, but it's a very small amount remaining in CDs,
Yes.
if anything.
Or there was, through
Okay.
US Bank.
Yeah, but we used to have a lot of CDs, because I remember people saying that Paul got the cemetery in on a number of fairly juicy CDs, and they hung around for quite a while. But
Yeah, I mean, a 5-year CD at 10%, that's awesome. That's incredible. That's cool.
great.
But from an...
Not anymore.
But even if it was, that's still, you're not going to see that 10%
Yeah.
Yeah.
for 5 years.
So donations from 10 down to 8. for professional services contracted lawn care going from 15.8 up to, do we say 24?
24,000.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, where are you at? I'm sorry.
This is,
Donations are down to 8,000.
yeah.
We're at 536 cemetery.
Okay,
page 11.
okay, expenses, okay.
Yeah.
Hey, we're gonna bump that lawn care up
To
to
24.
24?
I was just looking
Yeah.
for MKB to see what, we're in our final year, I believe, right now, of a,
And
I
this,
don't know if it was 50.
and this is just the allocation to the cemetery.
Mhm.
It's more than that overall, but there's other
Right.
pieces involved.
And keeping in mind, I mean, the 24 number came, if nothing else, of just a projection forward plus a little bit extra
Sure.
of the fact that we're already at almost 21 on expenses. So there's no way that 16 was anywhere near reality.
Okay.
Cemetery services going from 600 to, what was it, 36,000?
Oh, that's the trees. Okay.
26,000.
26,000, yep. And I mentioned to Jess that that because of how far that's gonna take that in the hole, it will need to have an accompanying balance transfer from general to
Yep.
cover it. And similarly, and by association, capital outlay should not get struck as a line item, but it should go to zero. At least in my personal opinion, I'm not going to vote for sprinkler repairs in the same year that we're trying to avoid a lawsuit and a death by someone walking in the cemetery and getting
Hit by a tree.
hit by a tree. That's brown grass in some areas is just the price of doing business this year.
I think the possibility of tree falling is real, and the damage it could do could be substantial
Well, and
dollar value.
even replacing an irreplaceable headstone,
That's absolutely.
$2,500 is a drop in that bucket.
Yeah.
If any of those trees come down, that they could cost us way more than.
Yeah.
Agreed.
The sprinkler system will be at the top of my priority list in 2024, but
Yeah.
that's just life. So,
Unless I applied for that historic,
Yeah, unless there's
Cemetery
some
grant
to
money.
help pick up some of this.
there's historic grant money for historic cemeteries,
Yeah.
but that, we can't project based on that.
yeah. Next is the library page, which would go down to a single line item, which is the amount that we choose to fund the library at. Obviously, this is just a committee and a workshop meeting. We can't come to action here. We can just determine the number that the mayor, or we suggest to the mayor a number that he proposes to the council. The number, Joe, check me on this. The number that Denisa gave to us was 18, right?
Yeah, 18 something. But I will say one of the items in her deal was their share of the insurance, which becomes a question, do we want to split that into this item as a line item, insurance for the, or do we just,
And how much was the insurance?
it's like she, I think, put 1,300 into it. Let me find it so I can give you some specifics.
I got nothing.
I've got 975 for it. Because it went down 25%.
Yeah, I'm just responding to her
Right.
spreadsheet. 18.2 is what they
Okay,
ultimately asked for.
18.2, and she had how much?
1,300 for insurance, and
Okay.
she probably wasn't aware that that was going to go down.
Well, plus I would advocate for not,
Even adding that.
I would not, yeah. Because in my opinion, I would like to see the library board only have to focus on library stuff, and yes, insurance,
But they can't control it.
but they can't control it, and it's not something that really, it's our responsibility, not their responsibility. So,
They're controlling the liability aspect of it in insofar as the hours that are posted for their employee.
right.
So that drops it down, if you take that 1,300, drops it down to 16,900.
Okay.
Down or up?
And if we, pardon me?
She was asking for
16.9
18.
total would be the number.
16.9 total.
Oh, okay.
So if we took the insurance off there,
But if they're gonna have this building on their own, shouldn't they be responsible for that?
Well, yes and no. For the purpose, what we very unofficially agreed upon was to keep it simple for them.
For at least a year.
The city is ultimately responsible for this building and the furniture and everything within. We wanted them to keep them focused on just the cost of them operations of a library.
In the long run, I think when we've got some things established and they've got repeatable processes in place and they've got all their budgets and I know they've done a lot of that already, but I'd say once everyone's got some room to breathe, we can look at saying, okay, let's make sure and split your costs back into things. But in the early stages of it, especially with us moving out and then everything to do with that, it just seems like it's too much to ask to try and figure out where the fair line is for them to share that cost.
Right. And I also think that once, no offense to everyone who's done this before, but there's a lot of the budget and bias and things. There's some massaging that still needs to be done about sharing things appropriately. So I don't want to have them to be burdened while we're in the middle of that experiment.
Well, I think one of the other things that's useful, because Jess brought this up as far as the frustrations of trying to figure out where something is represented when we split it across all sorts of different funds.
yeah.
The only argument I know of, and just only having done this a short time, to actually do that is to try and figure out, does something bring in roughly as much money as it's expending? The library is not in that category because it has no income source. It is purely a funding of ours. So we don't have any need to say, is the library bringing in as much money as they're costing us? Because that's just not even a relevant number. So to me, why would we want to split costs into the library? Because we don't need to understand the income outcome statement of them. They're just purely a, here's your money. We know that they're 100% cost. I don't mean this to be in any way mean, but they're 100% cost burden to us, which
Exactly.
is fine. They're to the benefit of the
city.
to the benefit of the community, and I'm good with that. But
Which is,
we don't need them to
it's like
pencil
the city
out.
park. The
Yeah.
city park doesn't bring us revenue,
Yes.
but we
Exactly.
spend money on it.
Yeah.
Same way.
So I would say this 16.9 was it
16.9 is the number that if you just
is still a fairly significant jump. I am.
from the 10,
Yeah, I am fine with seeing them getting a healthy increase. I have been and continue to be an advocate to make sure that they have funding to do more, but I think it would be an opportunity to see what they do with more, and then we'll continue to go forward with it. So I would say 16.
So I'm confused what I do with bias on this.
What I would advocate is to just say that we strike all the items out of there except for just one item that's what we fund them at, and then their budget is what becomes relevant for the internal breakouts of it.
so we just keep, for instance, line number 308, that is the beginning balance for the library, and everything under that, all the way down to,
So it would be beginning balance, and you'd need one other line item be transfer in from general fund.
Well, salaries breaks out in several different areas.
but their salaries, that's not even our issue, that's within their,
Yeah, no, Jerry, I think brings up a good point.
If we're gonna drop this like that, then are we giving them access to bias to maintain their budget?
No, okay, so we're gonna make adjustments as we go along throughout the year. We're not gonna wait till the last minute. So I say, my recommendation is to plug her numbers in to bias. The categories that she has on her spreadsheet are
Okay.
similar to what's already written here. And we can just move numbers to make it fit, to make the 16.9 fit in here.
Okay.
Because he's right. I think first and foremost we need to honor the salary part of the budget, which they're projecting their salary for the librarian.
There is a line item in there for that.
Yes.
Yeah, but
Now, are they projecting net or gross? Because we've got L&I to pay, and we've got PMFLA to pay, and
Correct.
so those things have to be paid. And if they want 15,000 for salaries, are they looking at net or gross?
Okay.
So,
Let me do some math.
and I'm fine with that, Joe, to get this done for now, but my contention is in the long run, if they're going to maintain a budget, their budget should be the definitive document to say how their money is spent.
Agreed.
And so therefore having all of the breakout in our larger budget doesn't make sense to me of playing a game of telephone, of having to maintain that. If they're going to use whatever they want to use, they want to put it together in a spreadsheet for their budget, I don't care. That's their responsibility.
Which you're asking them to be accountable for that budget, is what you're asking.
Well, no, because as far as I read, the RCWs mandate that they're accountable for that budget. It's not even my desire. My reading of the RCWs is that it is their budget. They set the budget.
Yeah.
They are responsible for it. So therefore, for it to show up in ours,
15.
74.
maybe it's one of these, essentially an unfunded mandate where the state says, no, they'll do it, but you're going to have to be responsible for it. If that's the case, that's what we'll do. But to me, the reading of it is that we prefer that if a person comes to us and say, we want to know how the library money is spent, we say, here's our line item of what we fund them for. If you want their budget, you're going to have to go to them and get their budget to see how it breaks out.
That's correct.
Now, line-wise, trying to get this done for the end of the year, maybe it's not the time to do that. And maybe we need to do our due diligence to establish whether that's possible. But I just don't think it's a good use of the clerk's time and everyone else to be playing a game of telephone and say, no, we want this, and change it here, 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 here. It's like, here's your money, you manage it in a responsible fashion.
Yeah. Agreed. It's just for the budget purposes and plunking in numbers. So,
So you'd rather have that than a one line item for a number?
you know what? For the sake of this meeting and getting the budget through, we can give it a flat number.
My only concern that I went over is, does that flat number consider one payment for the year or 12 equal payments?
Well, I don't think the budget dictates how it's distributed.
So salary is the one thing I did not consider as much in that. I think we're going to be safer to just plug the 16.9 or whatever number we actually put into all the categories and just do that because of how paychecks and everything come out and bias. My worry is that someone's going to tell me that if we just put it down to one single line item, then there's not going to be a line item from which we can pay salary out of, because at the end of the day, while it's their budget, they don't have software to do payroll with. So it's our payroll.
And their paycheck comes out of the city anyway.
Right.
Look at this real quick.
Yeah.
Well, then they shouldn't even put paycheck
That's her
in there.
projected for payroll, gross payroll. That is likely what the gross is before expenses, L&I, and all the rest of it,
Okay.
which is 40 hours. I have it on good authority. They're anticipating 40 hours a month
Okay.
times minimum.
Okay. Okay.
So, yes, the actual number, costs and everything are going to be typically 30% more
than the
And
gross.
What they've asked for.
Yeah, if I'm paying somebody, I could say this back in the day, but if I'm paying somebody $10 an hour, my
Yeah.
cost as an employer is typically 13.
Okay, so I'll say this then, that might be something that they'll want to adjust that number for in future years, but knowing that, for right now, I'd say give them the number they requested, minus the insurance in and out, so give them the 16.9 is what I would say.
Or that's the offer that the budget committee would make to them. That's our offer to you for this year.
I'm saying that's what I will vote for next week.
Okay?
And I can live with that because we're going to be making amendments and we're going to make adjustments as we go.
Yeah.
So,
Can you email me that budget that
Yes.
she had?
sure.
Because then I can try to figure out how to get the numbers in here.
The way it's broken out is quite similar to, not entirely. So whatever isn't on her spreadsheet, but is in our budget, I would just say 0. You know, leave it in as a line item, but put it as 0.
Okay.
I wonder how that'll play out in an audit.
Sorry, what, and put it as 0?
Oh, there were some items that are line items that are in this budget that are from bias that show different things
Oh, all-
that she doesn't have listed as dollar items in hers. So just put them at 0.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of things in
Basically,
this.
it's the library board that takes care of that whole operation, their own budget.
Well, ultimately, they're going to be learning some things about how to do budgets and how to interact with us, just as we are on the other side of it.
Right.
But yes, ultimately, I would agree.
Like
So
insurance.
last year, the budget for 2022 was 10,800, is that right?
Something close to that. And there's line items all throughout this document where it's 0, 0, 0 on both sides of it. Like even in the library board capital improvement donations was budgeted 0 and revenue 0. So
Yeah.
that's all over. Okay, page 14, cemetery endowment donations from 3 down to 2, if I remember right. Page 15, 536, cemetery improvement and maintenance, 12 grand struck, trying to pay for the trees a bit.
I see what you're saying, yes.
Keep it-
Page what, 14?
This is page 15. Keeping in mind that for reasons I can't fully explain, of the 12,000 that were budgeted in 2022, as of November 15th, we had spent $0 of it.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that actually could go toward the trees.
right, and that's what I'm saying.
That's our plan.
And
Well,
that's,
and I should correct I should correct my statement. Don't strike the line item, just take it down to 0, because it should come back the next year. I spoke inappropriately. Don't strike the 12,000, just
Just take the
zero
12
it.
and put it at 0.
yeah. Because that's going to be, that improvement and maintenance will be done in the form of
The
trees.
money doesn't go away, just the projected,
Yeah.
where it's allocated.
yes, for next year. We're not gonna
Yeah.
put it in, 'cause it's still there.
And then we get to skip to line 8, or page 18.
Yep.
Water sales from 90 to 92? 93.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah, Jess and I ran a calculator around on that, and 93 is what seemed to be about correct in that. So where 93 came from is looking at the run rate that we were actually doing up until November 15th and trying to keep in mind that we didn't actually read meters all summer.
Yes.
SWSMP planning grant and planning loan, striking those revenues. As of the middle of November, they hadn't even come in anyway. It's 54,000 and 34,500. There is a yellow highlight towards the bottom of that page for software, but that's another instance where I think that's a distribution of the bias or other software stuff, and the budgeted line item is correct to help it pay for bias. Why expenditures of zero, maybe the bias expense hadn't come in yet, or it just doesn't get assigned against every line item, but that's not a budget discussion. It might be a bias tagging discussion for later, but the 2550 is probably good enough. Page 19, water. Expenses for the planning grant and loan. Neither Jess and I really could come up with exactly what the planning grants and loan was about. 59,000 projected for expenditures and only 4,363 actually done. Keep in mind this is water, so this should not be the wastewater treatment plant redo thing.
Is this the water system plan?
I don't
That's
believe
already
so.
paid for?
That's 80,000
Okay.
through TD&H. I don't believe so. Otherwise, why would the expenditure only be 4,300? They collected that money this year as soon as it was funded through,
TD&H got paid already for a system plan that we don't have yet?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, they collected a substantial amount.
I think we've approved those claims.
I know we approved the contract to continue it.
And that was all going to be done within the 12 months. And we kind of cut a little slack because
of this and COVID and all the rest of it.
Yeah,
But we're supposed to have it done by the end of 2023.
that's correct. By the end of 2023, correct.
Hopefully sooner, because I've got some plans for that plan.
I'll plan on that.
So we're doing zero.
Capital outlay,
And that-
money we talked about.
Yeah, I mean, I'd strike the whole line item. No one here seems to know what it is, and it doesn't seem to have money behind it. Let me put it this way, if we need to re-add another item to represent that because we struck it inappropriately at our next quarterly update, we can at least title it something that we won't so easily forget at that time, but I don't, yeah. And then there's capital outlay. This is definitely debatable, but so there's 16,430 that was budgeted as an expenditure for capital outlay for water. Now note, that's not going to be for fixing water lines, that is a capital outlay. My contention with Jess is the reason why none of that was probably spent is probably because there's nothing we can do as a capital outlay for 16 grand. You can't buy a new water tower for that, you can't fix a water tower for that, you can't buy a pump for that. I mean,
I'll be straight up with you. One thing that I remember seeing, we can have the area underneath the water tank and a proper secure fence put around it, which I understand was a recommendation.
We can also update our supply of hardware to take care of the water system, valves. We have bled that down to where we buy them when we need them. We have no stock on hand.
Can we,
Okay.
I don't know where we're at. Are we on 19 still, or did we go past it?
no, 19.
We're on 19,
Okay.
under 534 water utilities.
Well, that's a good collection of things to do. That was better than what we came up with yesterday.
Yeah.
Because what I was going to say is that if we can't do anything meaningful in capital outlay for 16 grand, we might as well just put it into a line item below it, transfer to water reserve fund, so that when we do have to do a new pump, we just get a big check out of there. But you're right, valves, the clearing things under the water tower, that
All of those things.
That all
we-
fits.
We used to stock a good supply, and I'm not sure we should be a clearinghouse for valves
Well,
and screed L's and everything else we use, but routinely people, these things are failing because of their age. And the
Mhm.
biggest problem we have now is sometimes we're waiting for a month, 2 months
Mhm.
to fix a water leak because we don't have.
No, I agree. I think I don't think we need to go wholeheartedly, but I think we need, if we're running low on critical inventory, then
Yeah.
we should have it on the shelf. Reasonable amounts, we can rebuild, but
yeah.
yeah. Can we go back up to training and certification fees on the same line? Just a couple line items up. Do we, realistically, do we have any public works employees that are going to be going through water training certifications of any kind?
I don't think so.
So should we maybe trim that to reality for 2023? Maybe
Yeah, I
take
think-
maybe take $2,000 out of it.
Sure,
Yeah.
from my point of view, yes, absolutely.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so let's knock that line item down to 1,000.
It's a good catch. I
See
hope
what
we
I'm
can be
talking about?
spending more on training and
Okay.
certification in the future, but you're
I
right.
would love to. I
it's-
would love to adjust that upward
Mhm.
and maybe even significantly for the right person.
Yep.
That's the biggest issue.
Thinking
And we
about
have,
that, professional services, if we have to call in a pump truck again to blow those sewer lines, should we increase that a bit?
What, where, above the break, above the page break.
Yeah, well, that's sewer, not water. Never mind.
That's true.
Yeah,
That would
true.
be under,
No,
But obviously in professional
that's
services, we
underwater.
paid a,
bottom of page 18, professional services, 534-10-41-001. 2,000 budgeted, 17,750 expended.
now what would that have? It's not water testing.
no,
What? Is it the expense of having the water tested?
the professional services,
Yeah. Having the samples pulled and taken up to Davenport. and
Water
et cetera.
testing has its own. Yeah, that covers, that probably covers Casey. We should look at that.
if I were to.
'Cause that's gonna be her expense.
Why was it budgeted at 2,000, we've already spent 17?
Okay, so that's what's going on. Look at what's happening in terms of salaries, personnel benefits, and professional services. What we're not spending in salaries is what we're spending in professional services. Right? Because before that was done by Scott, it would have been represented as a salary. But now we're not paying an employee, we're paying Casey, who's paying Scott, which means that the money is going out as a professional service, not as a salary.
And at the time this got approved, or was being looked at and got approved, we still had the brothers
Yes,
working here.
correct. Yeah.
Okay.
So we
So
probably
those
should-
two need to be,
Yeah.
That whole thing needs to be looked at, because
Yeah.
we need to evaluate how much time Troy is actually spending on water lines, because that's got to be under his salary. And then the professional services need to be for our water monitors.
so help me out here on salaries. When we're doing payroll, is there provisions in there to say that X hours were water, X hours were sewer, X hours were
Streets,
For public works.
cemetery,
public? Yeah.
yeah,
Absolutely.
it's all broken down that way.
Okay, so that 24,000 there was allocated towards work being done on the freshwater system in the city.
And that's all he did all summer.
Was fix patches and
Was
holes and
patch
I'm sure
water lines.
our water breakup here, the bulk of that time between him and Scott were all spent on there is all reflected in this 24.
Yeah.
Okay. Which on one hand is abnormally high. Hopefully we never go through a spike like that.
Yeah, and that's probably why you see salaries up disproportionately to benefits. Because Scott's direct pay would not have benefits attached to it.
Right.
Correct.
And the same thing again, right now, we
So
need to
I'd,
make sure that we get Scott's pay in the last month here directed towards snow removal and
Yeah.
cleanup, keeping the equipment going for snow removal.
so I'd say let's do this. Let's go like 23 on salaries.
Yeah, 'cause
7 or
hopefully we have a lot less blown water mains.
yeah.
So this was done on 11/15, so we still got another month here on salaries.
Yeah,
So that's not 24.
But this is water.
25.5.
He hasn't
Yeah, but-
he hasn't been doing a lot with water in the past month, has he?
Very little with water.
yeah, but I wouldn't be willing to bet that we've been doing more water this year than on an average
Oh.
year.
That's all it's been.
Right.
Some of that's because we only have one individual.
So I'm gonna project that that's gonna come back towards averages. So I'd say if you do 23 on salaries and, you know, gosh, 3 on benefits, and then take professional services up to 19.
And I think we leave water testing alone.
Yeah, I agree.
And benefits is what?
3. Hopefully those go down
3.
dramatically.
Maybe 3.5,
And
because,
professional services, we're gonna leave that at 2,019.
no, 19. Because with salaries and benefits, remember, in other places across the board, we're doing a 5% increase. So I'm trying to weigh the fact that on one hand, we should be doing less water, because it's not just,
Can you say
it
3,500?
wouldn't just be Troy's water
Personal
time, it would be
benefits.
Troy and Scott's water time. And even if
Personnel benefits, 30.
Troy spends as much time doing water next year as this year, in
This
theory,
needs to go.
without that going on up there, it shouldn't be true for Scott as
Which
well.
one was that?
So I think there's
Testing.
room to let those numbers drop a fair ways and still
Okay.
allow them to
Your
shoulder a
numbers
little
are
bit
way
of the cost of
different than
living
ours.
increase.
I'm unproposed, yeah.
I think we probably need to add a line in here and
So-
budget somewhere for
This is what we're looking at.
our nuisance.
Water testing was projected in
Some
22
kind of
at
a-
that, and that was
some
our
kind of
actual.
a line to show for our, well, it's nuisance.
So that's why we're saying leave that alone.
It's probably, is it just getting covered under salaries right now?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Just today alone, there was 3 hours billed to that. As a monthly update. Something that I will bring to you after we're finished with this meeting here.
In some ways, given the way the roles are distributed right now in terms of who's filling them, it might not be best to break that out until we have a little bit more separation from Public Works and CEO. I get your point, but it could actually be a little bit more problematic to do that at this point.
We just need a way to somehow show that those hours are being.
Right, I get you. So then on 594, 34, 60, the capital outlay, I think we can just leave that alone now.
What page are you on again?
19. What we were talking earlier about
The
valves and
capital
stuff.
outlay, the 16,000, we've spent 0.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Let's-
we're
let's
gonna leave
just-
that as is.
Yeah, let's just resolve not to spend 0 next year.
Right.
Last thing I talk about with water is just that we need to take a shot at representing in and out on the stuff with, under the railroad tracks. Because we need to put pass-through line items on revenue and expenditure for what we're getting in grant and what we're projecting to put out.
And we're gonna need to have that in there for 22, because we're gonna have a final 22 budget that we approve, that all of this money that's been spent has to have monies in and monies out.
Correct.
Yeah,
That's just an amendment.
We've already received $65,000 from
Right,
Public Works.
right. But
Right.
so we have to show that as revenue, we have to show that
Yeah,
as
expenditure.
outlay, expenditure.
In and out.
Those items are in bias.
Okay.
I need to double check with them to make sure I put it in there correctly so that it reflects on both sides.
So when we get this is our actual expenditures and revenues for 2022.
I'm hoping you can, and I'm not trying to say this in a way that I'm telling you how to do your job. I'm saying this, I'm hoping Bias does this, is it can basically just say, here were all of our differentials versus budget. So your amendment is cleaning up all of your differentials. And it should be as simple as that. And then we vote on that amendment on 28th. And there'll be some questions probably of, well, why did we not do this? Why did we do that? But at the end of the day, we did what we did, and so we'll say this is
Why?
why, and then hopefully that amendment becomes law, and we're all balanced. The 2022 budget ends balanced at the end of the year with that last amendment. Okay, so page 20, no,
21?
21, sewer sales.
Well, okay. Beginning balance and revenues. I'm not clear on what that means, but that's okay.
Just money in the account.
Okay.
Yeah.
Transfers in, I'm sorry, back on 20. Transfers in from water, we were budgeting $25,000 from 401. I saw something about there was supposed to be a transfer out of a reserve.
Transfer out of the reserve?
That's a treasurer question.
Okay.
That might be
It
another thing.
says middle of the page, transfers in from water, 401 in parentheses, and it says 25,000 and nothing was done, so.
Well, those transfers, if I remember right, usually happen at the end of the year, or at least that's what Mike used to do.
Okay.
Is that those were kind of an expected cleanup line item, and then at the end of the year, when we knew where we actually sat with it, those transfers would make their magic moves. And
Yeah. Well,
Balance everything.
right,
okay, so this page is just kind of a wash, because I mean, then the next item down is anticipated expenses,
yeah.
and it's zero expenditures.
And that's another thing is that it would be good, I mean, we can't obviously force her to come with it, not that we would need to force her, but it would be good to request the presence of the treasurer with her laptop as we do the amendment and the projection for the next year, because if there's questions before people are willing to vote, it might be handy for her to be able,
You're talking about the meeting on the 28th?
yes, yeah.
Well, that might be a good training opportunity for her if we could ask Mike to be there and throw his input in,
Yeah.
because that way we can all understand that.
And I know this is kind of out of context, but as we're delving into this, there's going to be a lot of material on the 28th to cover.
Mm-hmm.
Do we want to open up an hour earlier? At 6?
Probably.
I'm in town, so
It's fine by me. Have we already announced it though?
no, I've not published anything yet.
Because we need to get into the paper pretty soon. But
Oh.
We need to do that, yes. Because that will be the final.
yeah.
Then that has to go in this Friday to come out in the advertiser on Wednesday.
Yeah, we could send it off tomorrow and get it in.
And then if you copy me, I'll post it on Facebook to give us another layer of announcement.
Oh,
Just that we're having the budget meeting and what
well,
time?
the hearing, a budget hearing has to be announced in the paper. Did we not get that into the paper? Because if not, we're
Well,
in problem.
in how many days ahead of time?
At least, I think it's at least one run.
And that'll come out next Wednesday, which is the 28th.
Could be two, but it might, hopefully it's just one. Because public hearings, yeah, we need to post them in our locations, right? We need to post them here at City Hall, we need to post it at the post office, and we need to get into the paper, I believe, for the... Yeah, that would be something that we need to definitely do as soon as possible. Yeah.
Well, should we check with our fellow council people? See if 6 o'clock is reasonable? I mean, I could even start at 4. I mean, I want to make sure that, what I would rather do is I'd rather burn the afternoon than burn
I'd say
the
just start
midnight
it at
owl.
6, and if people can't show up till 7, then maybe we'll only be able to establish a quorum at 7. But at this point, we need to make a decision, get that into the paper as soon as possible. Because we need to make sure we have at least one running of that.
I think if we get it in the record times, if we send that off tomorrow, it'll come out next Wednesday.
Okay. We also should probably talk to Ashley and just double check to make sure that's all confirmed, because we can't take... I know that for when the county was just recently doing their budget stuff, they needed 2 runs from the paper. I don't know if we're accountable to the same thing, but that at this point that ship has sailed, so we just need to make sure we can do everything we can do. So I'd say 6 on the 28th.
Okay, 6. Okay, 6 on the 28th. You're going to get the copy run and shut off to the...
That's a new addition to this agenda. Time 7.
Oh, yeah. Time 6.
That's the preliminary.
No, this is the final,
That'll
isn't
be
it?
that'll be the final
That'll be the final
2023 budget hearing
Okay.
and adoption after it to follow,
Okay?
presumably. Okay. So I think we're real close to the end here, because I remember these last pages went really quick. Sewer sales.
I'm on 21.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
So sewer sales is under, but I think Jess and I figured out where that came from.
Yeah.
So if you take the unpaid bills for water, sewer, garbage, and a person assumes that the sewer bill with the tax on it is basically half of the revenue that we get from that,
Mm-hmm.
and currently the amount of unpaid is $36,000, and not all of that would have been accrued probably in 2022. There was possibly some rollover from 2021. I'm just looking at some of the amounts that some people have on there. I'm guessing
True.
this is not
Yeah.
new. So let's just say that 20,000 of that was accrued, or a little bit over 20,000 of that was accrued in 2022. So half of that is what theoretically should be added to the 186,630 on the revenue side. If that's what you get with it, then it almost balances out. So I think, Jess, that we talked about lowering it to 223,
220.
220, yeah.
We did some math and calculations
Okay.
there.
Yeah. So it's relatively minor adjustment percentage-wise to the amount as a whole, but
But it helps balance it out a bit.
yep. I mean, we don't want to budget for non-payment exclusively, so.
Okay, so now, because I'm into the minutia, what on earth would we have miscellaneous other revenues in the sewer system? Are we selling our poo? And what's more scary is we actually have some revenue listed there, so.
Are you referring to just the MISC?
I'm just talking, I'm talking about 369.91.000004 or 004. Miscellaneous.
Donations, I don't know.
I've enjoyed the sewer system in Harrington so much. This year, I just want to give something back.
Is that the kind of donations you were talking about? I was thinking.
Satisfaction with every flush.
Bias is an interesting creature, obviously. So, anyway, I mean, I appreciate that it's in there. I struggle to believe where we're going to have any revenue, miscellaneous revenue going to the sewer.
Right.
Unless we sold off a surplus pump or an aerator or of the like.
Didn't we sell a pump?
We replaced one.
Yeah, we replaced one.
I thought I heard there was some
About a 7,000.
discussion, maybe it was just theoretical, about being able to reset. No, I think it was in relation to the redo, because
redo.
Andy was saying you could sell those things, and I thought, really?
Scrap metal.
Well, I think there's enough copper laying around and wiring up there on the ground that you could probably fund the system for a year, but that's a different conversation.
Sounds like a good idea.
Well, so anyways,
We can leave it in there, but I would like to watch it because I really want to know how you get miscellaneous revenue from the sewer treatment plant.
by all means, I wouldn't deprive you of entertainment.
Okay, thank you.
Compost.
I'm easily immune. You know, off topic again, but one area that we could actually generate revenue is by contacting some of the septic system pumping companies. If they need, this time of year, they can't necessarily spread it out in the field. They may need a place to dump their trucks, and you can charge them for it.
That might have been actually something, I think, hasn't this guy dumped in our sewer before?
Oh, I don't know. No, I don't think so. Not that I know of. They dump right across the street. The property that's just south of our,
Sure, and I know that's general practice, but when the ground is frozen, it's kind of tough to be spraying. Or maybe that's some of the-
from
maybe-
where it's dumping, you're probably okay.
Okay.
I would think it would be tough for him to drive off-road right now, not knowing where he's going. Out in
So the
that field.
client that I'm thinking is based in Cheney, and he actually, because of that problem, he went out and got a 6-wheel drive
Yeah,
Army truck, the Stevenson, Thompson Stevenson, or whatever the heck they're made from.
yeah.
Paid a phenomenal amount of money on it. They bring them in, they completely tear them down to every nut and bolt, rebuild them, charge a phenomenal amount, and they work. And it's specifically so he could go in places where other guys couldn't go.
I think the fire department just bought one of those, the county.
A deuce and a half, yeah.
Well, now that subject is clear as,
So, mud
yeah.
and other stuff.
Once,
I had a line, I had a note.
once
down
it's
here
processed, it can be used as
that
fertilizer, so.
says DOG grant.
DOE grant.
Yeah,
Right, that should, I think that can be struck.
everything is 0 around there, but I'm not sure what.
Well, it's 0 budgeted, and then there was expenditure again. You're talking about 519-70-41-000, right?
No, 397 under, right below water reserves. We go down 2 sections from there. 397, other non-revenues. And there's a note on here that says DOE grant, CD. I don't,
What page are you on, my friend?
I am on 21.
I'm not seeing what you're
And this
saying.
looks like my writing. And the heading is 397 other non-revenues. 397-0035 transfers from sewer revenues, reserves.
Yeah, we don't have them. Oh, wait. Yes.
Other
Okay.
Now, other non-revenues, okay, on the new one there, it's zeroed out.
Yeah, that's transferring
And on
from
the new
sewer.
one, there's 25,000, I take that back.
Well, that's just saying that there wasn't any projected transfer in from sewer reserves.
And now we
No,
put 25,000 in, 25,000 proposed.
He's looking
Okay.
at the proposed that Jerry mailed out.
It's not on mine.
So the new one has figures, yes, it's totally different. And there was no figures in here before, under 397.
See, mine's got 0.
Okay, his shows projected or proposed 25 grand. When, Jess, at the top of that page, what's the timestamp?
Well, the top of this page
The-
was 11:15.
The one on your screen.
The one on the screen is 12/16/2022,
To the left of that, there's an actual time.
13:48.
Interesting. 'Cause the one that Jerry printed off has a zero balance. Or zeros.
And this is the one that you sent me,
Should be the same.
the one I'm looking at.
Should be the same. We need to all get on the same page
Transfer
next
from
time.
Current expense, 25,000.
Oh, shout. I didn't mean that.
Yet that's not what I see on the one from the former.
134832. We're on page what again?
21,
21.
I'm on page
and we are
25.
under other non-revenues, number 397.
That's what you sent us.
Why is this one different?
So what is that?
I have 0.
Well, I know, but I guess the question is, what is? Well,
Perhaps
there's a couple of differences. This is the proposed 23 after he got done putting numbers in.
So does that thing generate, when you put numbers in it, does it generate numbers in other areas too?
Not on proposed.
Not like an Excel spreadsheet? or
25 is too round of a number for it to have been automatically generated.
Should we? I don't even know what that is, and that's revenue. Should we strike that?
something. Then we get to the bottom, it's fund revenues, $50,008.
Yeah, because it has another 25,008 above that on that
Yes.
page.
Yeah,
I have no idea where that came from.
and where did it get the 8? From, oh, the 25,008 at the top.
Yeah.
Estimated beginning balance. So that's 109. Intergovernmental reserve, what's before 109? If we go up a page. So that's on the page before, it's also on page 20. Other non-revenues, $25,000. Other non-revenues, 25.
You say page 20?
It's
And
on
again,
page-
this is all on the proposed that you're,
Yeah, this is, well, now if I go to that, on the proposed, no, if I go up to page 20, and it has, nope, don't see it there. On the original 2022 budget is where it's showing at 397, other non-revenues.
you know where I was talking about that transfer in from water reserve
Yeah,
on the proposed, and it's like, well, that's all done in the treasurer and it's some balancing thing. What if this is pulling that in?
that's what it
number-
says, transfers in from 401, water 401. That's on page 20. Well, I'm looking at the old 2022 budget. Under 397 transfers.
So I wonder if some of those transfers is just saying this is a done deal.
It may do that on its own to balance it out. I don't know. I'd have to ask that question. Because this does some things that I don't understand.
So you're saying Bias could have done this?
I wouldn't put it past it. I mean,
So it is like an Excel spreadsheet. I'm just using that as an example from my knowledge.
it may be. I'd
So
have,
in one figure, it updates other figures in other areas.
Maybe.
So I guess what that tells me is when we have a document in our hand, we need to make sure that we are looking all at the same exact document.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
Okay, so bottom of page 21,
Okay,
DOE grant expenditures. That should be struck, I would believe.
Department of Ecology grant.
Mm-hmm.
well, we got revenues, but no budgeted amount.
No, this 519 is going to be an expense.
Right. And are we expecting expenditures on the DOE grant next year?
Shouldn't we? Isn't that the grant, the wastewater treatment plant that we are still making payments on?
That's not
That's
a grant, that's a
that would
loan.
be the loan.
Yeah,
But it's an expenditure.
Well, but it's not a grant.
Truth. Maybe it's a titling error.
Perhaps, if that was the loan, I'd be perplexed for that to not have a budgeted amount, because that's been on for a long time.
Yeah, because I've not seen that anywhere on this budget yet, and if we're not budgeting for debts of our past sins, then
Well, Jerry, do you know how much typically that payment was?
I'd have to look it up.
Okay. Well, we might have to keep that line item then and actually bring the budget up. If that is what it is, it'd be good to rename that, because the grant would be applicable to what we do going forward, but the loan is applicable to what we're historically obligated to.
to keep things simple, is that information that our friend at Ecology would readily know, have access to?
our friend that we could probably call even tonight probably knows
Yeah,
that.
which would be wonderful, but it's 8:45. I'm not going to do
No,
that
that's
to
too
her.
late.
I'm not going to abuse that honor.
Yeah, so I'd say we should be able to bring that into alignment before we file this tomorrow morning, hopefully. Page 22, salaries and benefits, that's the 5%.
Yep,
Professional services, we talk about taking that to 21? From 14,400?
Okay, I'm sorry. Where are we at? 22? Page
Yeah.
22?
yeah,
Okay.
but that's back here, isn't it? That's from another,
Okay, would we decide to do on salaries just the
That's the 5%.
plus 5%?
Yeah, professional services, I got 19 back here,
19, okay.
so.
Well, no, it should be more than 19. If I said 19, I would have been in error, because we're at 19 in the middle of November. We're at 18,948 in the middle of November, so it should be more than 19.
Professional services,
Yeah.
I don't know, back in water utilities, we got that as 17,000,
Well, yeah, but this is a different set of professional services.
okay?
They're getting broken out at something other than 50/50, which actually brings that up, because if you look at salaries and personnel benefits, salaries is running at 50% and benefits is running at 80%. Or no, that's 80% remaining. So it's doing the same thing that water is, that we're seeing salaries and benefits. Although the difference is that salaries is not nearly as high on sewer as it is on water, which makes sense because of all the water things we've been doing. So professional services, salaries, and personnel benefits should all have an adjustment that's somewhat similar to what we did in water. So
And so
Okay.
far, it's already 18.
Now, I do have another question with regard to sewage water testing. I am embarrassed to say that I have not, because we've had such a small sampling of comparing AAA
To
and
Anatech?
Anatech to know how they compare from a cost point of view.
Yeah, we've only been using Anatech for a month, so to speak.
yeah, I got the impression they're fairly commensurate.
So professional services, from a budgetary standpoint, from 14 to what, 20?
21, I'd say. It takes salaries probably to 16, personnel benefits to 3. Salaries to 16, personnel benefits to 3, and professional services to 21.
Okay, so we're dropping the salary on wastewater.
Yeah, it's that same shift as what we're doing with regular water, is that our employees aren't doing it, so we're paying
Touche.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
It's from 12 to what?
to 3.
Is there no anticipation of trying to hire another public works person that may be certified?
I will call request a special session if that person walks through the front door and says, I'm moving to Harrington, I'd like a job.
Okay.
On the off chance that happens, I will request a special session.
I don't want to close the book on it and say we have no hope for that, but what I'm seeing is the certifications that we need. Generally, it's going to be challenging for us to pay enough to keep a person interested. We're going to need someone who they want Harrington, they want the Harrington quality of life. Like in some ways, they're going to need to want us more than we want them. And while I don't doubt that that person exists in the United States, I think our odds of finding them are somewhat reduced, because like young men who have the certifications are probably not going to stay here. Harrington is not a good career stepping stone for such a situation.
I think you need a retired person who wants to augment a
Retirement income.
retirement income, absolutely.
Well,
It's not that hard to get those certifications. There are people that, I have a couple of people who would be glad to help train you.
would Cynthia let you do it?
Well, I can tell you one thing. If you remove the hours that I spend at the seat that I'm in right now, it would be a downshift of hours and an increase of wages by several 100%.
Yeah, you'd have to deal with a lot less crap too.
And I'd only have to deal with just crap, the kind you can wash off.
That doesn't talk back.
No,
Hopefully it doesn't talk back.
and nobody would be handing me any crap. I mean,
Okay.
There you go. Okay.
Going down further on
Carry
that,
on.
I mean, lagoon work and weed control, which we spent $0 on.
Well, We did spend money on weed control.
It's true.
Yes, we did.
Did we do it at this treatment plant though?
Yes, we
You
did.
did.
Okay, so it didn't get allocated correctly.
He-
Correct.
He was here early this year, and he has not called me back with a bid on doing the whole city. He did
Okay.
the parks, he did the cemetery, and he did the treatment plant.
So there's going to be some things that happen at the wastewater treatment plant this year in 2023. You don't think that's going to get built?
No, I
The
don't
fiber
think it'll
building?
happen this year. I'll bet it's into 20.
Oh, the fiber building.
The fiber building, you don't think that's going to happen?
Oh, the fiber building, yes.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's where I'm going with this. So the fiber building,
Yeah.
are we going to have expenditures for helping prep that? Anything that we would have to do with that?
They're going to take care of all of that.
Okay.
Directly or pass through?
Directly.
No.
I don't think it's going to hit our budget.
And we're going to get, they're going to build it and they're going to pay us for letting them build it.
Yes. Yes.
I love it.
Yes, I mean.
Well, it's not without costs. We'll be lucky to break even by the time we pay for everything for franchise fee, franchise agreement reviews, lease reviews, etc. It's going to pay for itself, but it's not like we have this ginormous windfall.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with that. The benefits to the community are huge.
Mhm.
I just want to make sure that we're keeping that under consideration and that's not being missed.
So I think
The capital outlay, what was that for? Was that anticipation of us having to buy a pump or an aerator or?
yeah, we've had to do at least one pump.
Yes,
But we didn't do it in 2022.
I don't believe so. That was probably 21.
Okay. So I think we need to leave that in there.
No, it
Yeah.
wasn't in 22.
Because,
Nathan told us to expect another one.
yeah, it's likely to happen before.
I'm hoping that, I'm hoping that we make it through this.
Okay. So as much as I hate to see that much sitting out there in capital outlay, I think we need to leave it.
Mm-hmm.
That's
It was
that
about $7,000 or $8,000.
7930 is what's on the budget.
Yeah, that's probably true. That is a submersible pump, the pump that pumps it from here up to the sand filters.
Okay. Like I said,
Mhm.
it's just,
Yeah. The last items would be in garbage. Pages 30 and 31. Towards the bottom of page 30, in 514 garbage service, looking at refuse hauling and Lincoln County intergovernmental fees.
before we go there,
Mm-hmm.
because I think I just found it. Page 25. Midway down, 597, other financing costs,
Uh-huh.
USDA.
Oh yeah, debt service principal. Yeah, that's right.
Okay. I love that we paid 6,200, but we budgeted for 32. And even down, by the time we get down to the bottom, we've expended half of financing costs.
Didn't they
What do we-
already refinance our debt on? Oh, and that didn't change the payment though.
And that hasn't gone through yet, has it? We put everything we know into play, but we don't know if that's been an actual done deal, do we,
I
Jess?
think that's a done thing.
Yeah, it's a done, because we signed, we moved the approval of changing it, but it didn't change the month, or
It didn't change the payment,
Just
it
the
gained
duration.
us $250,000 in interest.
On the backside, okay.
And it didn't change the time frame left to pay on. So we're still gonna pay for another 10 or 12 years, but we're going to pay significantly less, $250,000 less.
Mm-hmm.
And our interest, because our interest rate was,
Yeah, I got the impression that our payment stayed the same, but we ended up paying fewer months overall.
that could have been.
But I'm looking at this and it's great that we budgeted that for it, but we didn't spend that much. And my question is, why?
You're talking about 597?
That whole section in there, from the top to the bottom, and the budget and all the rest of it. And even when you say, okay, it's not allocated correctly and all the rest of it, which I accept, but the bottom line is, we didn't pay what we budgeted, and are we not paying what we're supposed to, and we're wrongly accruing interest? We're not paying down the principal, or are we over budgeting for this? I don't know. I'm just.
Let me research that. I'll find out.
I'm hoping that we were budgeting maybe for trying to pay it down sooner.
I mean, what we pay for debt service, that number is going to be a hard number. I mean, I'm assuming when we put the number in, we say this is for principal, this is for interest, based on their statement. But I would like to have a better explanation.
Yeah. Okay, you good there then?
We need to research that and then adjust
Yeah.
accordingly. That's all I'm saying.
Yep.
Okay, I'm done with that section.
Page 30, refuge hauling.
Yep. So, Jess, do you have in your notes the numbers? Was it 45?
55.
Yeah, 55 and leaving, were we going to leave 30 on the other one?
Yes, we didn't
Yeah.
change that one.
Yep.
We're taking the 35 up to what, 55?
Up to 55, which is a little less than what we've already spent.
Yep. And hoping that the new garbage rate schedule might bring things into it. Because what I told Jess is, because with the new schedule, in theory, you're going to be encouraging people to shift containers because the cost of garbage per cubic foot is going to be changing in the containers to bring them into unity. Because right now, they're wildly different. So to bring it into consistency amongst all the containers, that means to get from where we are to that consistency means a cubic foot of trash changes wildly from different containers. So then people say, okay, which size do I really need to try and get the cheapest thing? And so that's going to change all of our numbers such that this is not the year where we can try to hit a precise, okay, here's how the calculation is, so this is what we should do, because then all your distribution is going to change on you. So my argument is let's just stick 55 on it, and the new schedule should get us a lot closer, and we'll see how close we got. Because the thing is, from the years I've been seeing budgets, we're always in the hole on this number anyways. I'm just wanting to see forward progress, and if we can go in the hole less next year than we did this year, then we are on our way out.
Okay.
Not only that, I
Since-
think we will beautify our city dramatically.
Right. So, hammering this a little bit, you guys have told us that the green waste is an expense, but none of it's been allocated on this budget. So, accepting that is in conjunction
Isn't
with the
it under
recycling
recycling bins?
bins, and it got combined in that,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I can accept that. Regardless, 2,800 is far away from 65.
28 and 60. Where are you getting 28 and 65?
1,000 for our budget was 1,000 for the green waste dumpsters and 1,800 for the recycling bins.
Yeah.
And as we know, we're at 6,500. So that's closer to a.
Oh, yeah, I can buy that because remember we were talking about throughout the year how we were going through those.
Oh,
compost
we
dumping,
knew
it's like
we knew it in the
none of
middle of the year that the budget was
Yeah.
blown.
Yeah.
So
You're saying you just want to adjust that.
well, even by a past mayor's comments, it was overlooked, and he really should have adjusted it
Yes.
at that time.
Yeah. That's,
So I think we need, I don't care how it's allocated, but I think that needs to be at least $7,000. if not 8.
Mm-hmm.
From 1,000, that needs to go up 537,004,000.
So
Yeah.
Jess, I'm referring to the combining of the green waste and the recycling, and the Lincoln County recycling bins. So the combination of those two line items, I don't care how it's allocated, it's not allocated correctly in this.
So
But-
there's 1,800 one and 1,000 for the other, and that's not at all.
No, we're 65 into, as of, with a month and a half left, we're $6,500 into that.
Yeah, but I can't believe that price is gonna stay the same.
That's what I'm saying, I think it
They
needs to go
charge
to
us almost
18.
Nothing to haul those off.
It what?
They charge us almost nothing, $110 to haul that all the way, almost to Cheney.
The
Green waste.
the green waste. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm just okay. That's fine.
Lincoln
I'm
County
just,
has given us a deal there. I don't know how
and that's only
I don't know how he drives the truck and pays the driver.
okay. Well, they probably get it on the
Once a
backside.
week, He charges $110 to drive that thing almost all the way to Cheney.
Okay, so and that's for how many weeks?
Well, that's for a week just about.
No,
to dump
but
the
he's not
waste.
doing it year round.
Oh, no, well, we just had it pulled here, I'm gonna say 2 weeks ago.
Okay, for the first time in probably what, a month?
Yes, the last month, since it started snowing, green waste is
Done.
wore down.
So
Only because people can't get to it to bring it.
So are we?
March.
Would you estimate that we're probably spending 1,000 a year on green waste?
Yes,
More than 1,000, because we got rid of the burn pile.
Right.
So now everything goes in there.
So at 110 per dump, then
yeah, if you figured 25 weeks, what's, half a year?
okay. So
That's-
if we
that's what I'm
gave
getting at.
$3,000 to the recycling bin entry and $3,000 to the green waste entry, would that get us closer?
I think we need to go probably
3,500 each.
Okay.
or 3 and 4.
Okay. We can do 3 and 4. So that takes us to 4 and
Takes
5,
us to-
8. 5,800. 4,000 and 5,800.
So $3,000 for the green waste,
Take us to 4.
and then how much overall for the recycling bins? That's what I was saying. We could take that to 4, but
Oh, just take it to 4. Wait.
that'd give us 7,000 overall. That's $500 more than it's budgeted. It's probably light.
I mean, we've incurred, if you assume that 6501 is recycling and green waste, that's what we hit mid-November.
Yes.
So that means that in a year that had a burn pile for half of it, third of it, you did $7,000, a little bit over $7,000, probably. So that means that in total between the two, I think you need to have at least 8 or 9, probably more towards 9.
So we probably should put 6 on recycling bins and 3 on green waste.
Okay. Yeah, I'm good with that. At least for now, I think we probably need to have a discussion again about what the city feels its obligations are to providing green waste things. I mean, I need to look at it again, but from the last I've heard, a lot of other cities don't help citizens with green waste stuff.
Probably half years, there's nowhere to take it.
I think that's because of the quarantine.
Right.
So we need to lobby and get rid of the quarantine, and then we don't have to have it.
No.
But other larger municipalities who obviously have much bigger checkbooks, for free or for a nominal cost, put
They
A-
compost.
they put a huge green, our largest garbage can. They have those available in the color green to put in grass clippings and tree.
Yeah, in a
Yeah.
situation where you're the one doing the waste management,
Yeah.
Right.
at this point, what Sunshine
Right.
will and won't do is our whole deal.
Right. So So all I will say is, in the future, we need to make sure that whatever we're paying for our green waste is allocated in bias correctly for
Yeah.
tracking purposes.
And I would love, I think we're still getting people from out of town and small businesses dumping in our
Well,
green waste.
I think if we go to our other action plan, which is to move those bins again to a city-owned property on the other side of the highway where you have to drive up 100 yards up to a track, is going to be a deterrent just in and of itself. And if it keeps going, then we can secure it, and it's only open for set hours.
Certain hours a week.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's another conversation.
And
So then the person who's retired that does the water sampling can work from noon to 3 on Saturday at the green waste dumpster.
That'd be a good part-time job for me.
So the last two items then would be on the next page, 31, salaries and benefits under garbage. I mean, I highlighted it with just the 5% thing, but now that we're actually looking at salaries and benefits in general, we're off by a bit that needs to probably be adjusted already, but I'm a little curious how we ever got benefits to be budgeted for 0, because if we were, my understanding is basically we've taken all the expenses related to a person and then broken out some percentage of that person into various categories. So for us to have budgeted salary for a person but no benefits for the person, what does that even mean?
It means that we don't pay benefits for virtually anybody in this town, so we lucked out.
Well, but we did pay $1,723 as of mid-November to someone. I mean, isn't it always going to be a salary benefit split?
Should be.
Yeah. So I don't know why we had a 0 budgeted.
And out of curiosity, what is $12,000 worth of expenditures and salaries on garbage from the city side? I mean, I know there's time spent going over there and crushing the garbage and calling to have it ordered to be picked up and
Cans in, cans out.
Yeah, moving cans around.
Okay.
Tasks that, like pulling weeds, could be related to garbage
Because it's at that site.
because it's not on the street. But
Oh. Okay.
yeah,
Okay. That's fine.
and it can't be allocated to cemetery unless they're in the cemetery.
yeah.
So
It feels a little high to me, but there's still going to have to be a legitimate number there no matter what we do with it. I'd be curious after we get through budget season to learn a little bit more.
As to where that came from?
I mean, I have no problem, making that list of all the things they have to do. It just, for some reason, from my mind, it doesn't seem like it adds up to a lot. And I guess over the course of a year, it's not a lot, but
well, that could have been our temporary hire
yeah.
who
ended up doing
did a lot of weed whacking and
Yeah.
a lot of
yeah,
things like that. So
That's true.
moving garbage cans and
yeah,
I don't
pulling
have a
weeds.
tendency yet to associate in my mind that maintenance of the properties associated to these various funds would show up as expenditure in the fund. I tend to think about just the actual.
We
So-
spent probably 2 weeks of our temporary help cleaning up the sand filter area, pulling weeds
Okay, well that
and
would.
dead grass because we had a blowout in there.
Okay, so that would add up.
It was watering the weeds.
Mm.
Instead of this valve funneling water through the sand, it was blowing up and,
Oh, was that what we saw that one day when we were up there?
yes,
Okay.
yeah, there was a valve, gate valve that's supposed to run it down the line.
And it
And
was,
it was blowing straight up in the air and it filled a 50 square yard area which kochia grew in. Because there is gravel on top of visqueen, if you want to call it that. 4 or 5 inches of gravel on top of this visqueen and that whole area was flooded. So when the seed's laid in the gravel, here we've got a hydroponic kosher farm
Perfect.
going.
Perfect storm, yes.
Well,
Okay.
With sewage.
so I'd say let's go to 12 and 2.
2 for benefits,
Mhm.
or personal benefits?
12 might still be a little low. I guess I'm a little bit hopeful that I'd like to see if there's ways in which and this is a statement out of pure ignorance. I need to go down and spend some time actually. I've never really walked around down there at wastewater treatment plant. I need to do that. I'm hoping maybe there are some ways that if we were to fund a few capital improvements to say like, hey, if we put some gravel down here, if we change the slope of this or something like that, we can spend less time weed whacking it.
We don't weed whack at the treatment plant, that was over at.
Well, pulling weeds.
At the
or-
sand,
Yeah.
Sandville.
I'm just saying, I'm hoping there's a way, I guess I'm picking that 12 number in a little bit of optimism to say that I'd like to see our salary expenses reduce sewer, or sorry, I meant garbage. I got myself turned around on that, sorry. In regards to garbage, I'm hoping we can reduce that because inherently, we don't do the servicing of it. We pay another company to do the man on the ground thing for a lot of it. So I'm hoping that we can still find a few ways to reduce salary, but 12 is still an increase of 3,700 from where we're at, and 2 on benefits is an increase of 2. So
Okay, we do need to go visit page 27.
okay,
I feel capital improvement fund, category 409, I feel like this is the area that we need to address our upcoming anticipated changes with regard to the fiber program coming through town.
right. What would that be though?
So we're expecting, assuming they actually build the building in 2023, which at this point, the speed that he's going, we have no reason to doubt that that's gonna happen. That would be an additional revenue of 20,000. Right, Jess?
That was the term, or that was the number I was given.
Okay. So I don't know how to categorize that
That
in,
was
as
the
far
number.
as the bias and how to do it, but I think we need to add a line item for that one-time payment for the lease
I'm gonna give you the money, yeah?
of $20,000. We need to probably remove the next line, the 341,950409, because
You're on page
that,
27 now?
yes.
Why don't you just reuse that line?
Well, because that says legal services, and that was, the
Oh,
agreement was for 25,000. He gave us basically a 5,000 down payment.
Yeah.
The intent of that was to pay for the attorney to review
Right.
the lease
Right,
and the
right.
franchise agreement.
Okay.
In addition, for expenses under that same category, we will have legal expenses, and do we want to break them out? We've already projected some legal expenses overall. Do we want to break out those legal expenses specifically for this project, or just leave it as is?
I'm of the opinion that given the complexity, 30 pages as it is, I don't want to break out anything that legally we are not required to break out.
Okay, then let's just put in the $20,000 that we're expecting for a lease,
Okay.
a one-time lease payment, and then in the next year we can change that to, I can't remember what it is per month, or per year, but it's a nominal fee per year for, I think it was the next 10 years.
Yeah. Yes, it is a 10-year period.
But it's a nominal, the bulk of it was paid up front and when they build it, and then it's like what was it, 100 or 1,000 a year? It was some just almost no consequence for the next 10 years.
I would have to pull out my file for Intermountain.
Right. We can deal with that in 2024.
Yep.
Okay?
Well, and Scott Hutzel and Janice will be here on the 28th.
Yes, they will.
So,
That's the plan anyway.
so I think that should do it. Those are our line items. Sounds like we have a few things we need to research tomorrow morning, and then we need to get that officially filed, which I don't know that that's enough. Like, we need to have it available on hand. This is the preliminary budget hearing, and I'd say probably, Jerry, if you can throw that into a PDF and shoot it out to info@harrington.city, then we have made public disclosure. It is available in case anyone asks. The numbers that we're going to be searching for, except for a few things we need to research, have been put on YouTube tonight. That'll be held for over a week. We need to make absolutely double sure that we get it into the paper as soon as possible.
And then I will post it on Facebook for the online backup.
Yeah, and making sure that it is the terminology I think needs to be in there, open public hearing. Public hearing is it's not just a meeting, it's also a public hearing for budget adoption. So,
That needs to be in the paper.
yes.
And do we need to
Not-
call Ashley?
I would call anyone you needed to call to make double sure that it's going to run before the meeting. What?
The REET. Do we know what that is?
Yeah, leave that alone. That comes from county treasurer.
Okay.
Yeah. Can you email me your notes?
So our duties as we leave here tonight are our...
With regard to this? Okay.
That we just went through.
So,
Just to back up your,
Jerry has a few things he's going to investigate with, like the payment on the loan, that kind of stuff. We need to talk to Sage, invite her to come on the 28th, invite/request, tell her to bring her equipment in case she would need to answer any questions on the fly. Need Sage to also comment on the cemetery interest thing to give us some numbers to plug in there. And as far as I can tell, she's the only one who could tell us what to expect interest-wise. She's the one who manages LGIP and all that kind of stuff. I don't know how any of us could possibly generate a number that would mean anything at all. She should tell us where those funds are expected to show up and roughly how much they are. But I think that, I don't know if there was any other numbers that needed to be, seems like there was one more number that we noted needed to be investigated.
It was the 5%, whatever the bonds were going for, or
CDs.
Bonds?
The CDs.
Oh, well, that's still on the cemetery stuff, but I think there was another thing outside of the cemetery that we were going to. There was one other thing that we needed to take a look at before we put together an actual number on that.
okay. Looking for comments
I
about
will be
research.
here probably 10:30 tomorrow. 11 o'clock we have a phone call.
Yes, at 11.
Okay.
It was the, doing the math on the Innovia grant.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll be able to figure that out.
So I think if those three things are established, then we have our numbers. When we have our numbers, Jerry runs a PDF, sends that to everyone and their dog, and accompanied by saying you have any problems with this, show up on the 28th for the public hearing. Public hearing starts at 6, not 7. And I think we should be good.
And I think it's important that we all work from one copy only,
Yes, yeah.
because all of these copies seem to have different numbers.
Agreed.
So probably need to go through the numbers of whatever the final comes up, compare them to these.
No, if you want to have an indication of just how serious I am, I think we should all just work off of printed copies on the 28th. Physical paper.
Holy cow.
It is, it's freezing in hell tonight.
I'm not taking it.
So.
I'm not
They
taking it
said that
home.
Fire Lake, you don't want to ski in. I think it just had a freeze report.
I'm not taking it home, but my point is to make sure that we don't have a, which revision? That revision? Oh, when was it sent? Just have it on the
I
table.
don't typically look
And-
at dates and times.
And again, I'm not taking it home with me. If I want it, if I need reference to it in the future, I'll get a PDF at that point. But to make sure we're all on the same exact page.
Well, make sure I bring a pen.
Wow,
Hot diggity dang.
that's,
Yeah, you guys were here when it happened, so
They did say a storm was coming through.
is the recording still on?
I'm gonna stop it here. Are we good
This
to
is
stop
on
this?
YouTube, is that correct?
Yes. All right, I'm gonna end this.